It is the end of August, and our climbing roses might display this very unusual behavior of shooting long and strong canes in every direction possible. This can create a lot of fear in many gardeners' brains. So today, let's turn that fear into confidence, and it's better to see it once than to read about it 10 times in different gardening books. So I am taking care after my generous gardener here today, and I'm showing you how I do it. I think that a lot of mistakes are happening when young rosarians are trying to take care after their climbers in August, from conceptions that roses are like trees, climbing roses particularly, like trees. Once they form a branch, that's it. That branch is there to stay for the rest of the life of the rose. Well, it is a mistaken understanding. So your climbing rose constantly rejuvenates the canes, and by rejuvenating I mean that old canes die off slowly, and we rosarians are helping nature to speed up this process, and we are cutting old canes all the way to the base of the rose. And instead of that old cane, we are training our new beautiful canes. So what the beginner rosarians might think, okay, I have this long shoot, I don't want this long shoot to be here, so I want my rose to preserve its beautiful nice shape, so I'm going to cut this all the way here where the canopy begins, and my rose will stay next year in the same shape. Well, it is a recipe for disaster, because your rose is not functioning that way. It's not a tree where the canes are here to stay for the life of the rose. That, I think, the root of a lot of misunderstandings. So what we do, we help the nature keeping these long canes and substituting them for old ones, and we mercilessly cut out the old ones on our climbing rose, but not now, in spring, when there is a major cleaning, pruning, shaping. That's a major maintenance step in spring when the roses are just starting to wake up. Now our job, our approach to these canes would be, we don't want to trim them. This is the future of the rose. We want to tie them in for the wind, not to rock them back and forth, and roses can really damage itself by whipping these long canes against each other and really doing a lot of wounds. So our job is to tie it in the direction we want it to go. It doesn't have to be pretty. Now we're preparing our roses for the fall, but we want this long cane to live through the winter. And hopefully we will have this, it will go through the winter successfully, and we will have this beautiful substitute during the cleaning for spring, when some old canes might die, might be damaged by critters, whatever happens through the winter. And there are a lot of things which might happen to our rose. We have these beautiful young canes. And for example, my generous gardener here, it has, something is going on here. I don't know, I have a lot of yellowing of leaves, and by now roses look tired, right? The foliage is diseased, it's falling down, black spot is moving in. My generous gardener is very healthy here, but here this section is looking a little bit tired. And when I look close in, I see that actually these two canes are becoming very old. So old canes will not produce a lot of blooms. And we want blooms from our rose, right? I can decide to keep those long canes, and they will produce leaves next year, but the blooms are not going to be there as much as on the new and healthy rose. So what I'm going to do, maybe this shoot, you see that big one coming out of there? It's not a main stem, it's a side shoot which decided to grow nice and strong. It happens sometimes with the rose. So I will train that long one this direction, and it will go into winter. Now you might look at my rose and say, but there are so many shoots, Olga, what are you going to do with all this? The shorter ones are side shoots, and they decided to become nice and tall and created roses at the end. You see all the hips. I'm not getting rid of hips right now. The beginning of September, my rose has to have all the hips, slowly start to prepare itself for the fall. And people who garden in warmer climates, their roses are still blooming. So warmer climates, the story is quite different. Here in Connecticut, zone 7A, winter is approaching and rose has to get ready. So no cutting, not deadheading hips. And also side shoots, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to touch them now. They probably will sway on the wind a little bit, but when rose goes into dormant stage, and here for us it's the end of November, it's getting later and later because we're becoming warmer and warmer, I will trim all that, and it doesn't have to be a pretty job. Just to trim it for the stems not to rock in the wind and probably damaging each other, right? So I will just give it a nice trim, and my rose is ready to go into winter. Long canes are tied, shorter canes are trimmed when rose is already in the dormant stage. And why is that? Because if right now, if I will do all the trimming, my rose will start actively growing. The cut produces new growth, and I don't want that to happen. I want the stems of the rose to slowly change into that sinister gray color where the flow of liquids is slowing down, all the nutrients are moving into the root system, and rose looks really miserable. But that's actually a good defense system against cold and wind, and rose is actively preparing itself for colder days. So no trimming, nothing right now, only tying long canes, and it's not going to look pretty right now, but I don't care. My rose has to be looking very wonderful when it is blooming next spring. Okay, so let's do it. Let's do the tying in. For this job, you would need your tying string, secateurs, and a pair of gloves. Where is my second one? Here it is. Gloves are very important. Sometimes I don't like to use them because they're not as flexible, so I'm trying to use my bare hands and be very careful, but usually gloves are recommended. I forgot to tell you one more thing. You, a generous gardener, and a lot of climbing roses, will try to produce these long canes, some of them from the bottom of the plant, which is very good, very valuable. This way you can get rid of those long old canes all the way at the bottom of your rose. And sometimes the side shoots somewhere in the middle of the canopy can turn into this long octopus growth. So what I do? I keep all of the stems which are produced, main stems, which are produced from the base of the plant. And if I see long shoots coming from the canopy, the side shoot trying to be the main one, it's up to me if I want to keep it as a side shoot or the main cane. I can substitute the main cane, cut it out to where the long side shoot is growing, and then I have a new main cane. Or I can treat it as a side shoot, and in spring, cut it to 4 or 5 leaves, and it will produce a bloom. It will not be long and growing in any side possible. For example, here, look at my rose on this side. It was very happy this year. It created a lot of bottom growth, not really from the base, which would be ideal, but good enough from one stem, old stem, which is growing here for maybe 3 years, and it is growing all the way down here, and it is becoming old. So maybe what I will do next year, I will cut all this long big stem all the way where the new shoots begin, and I will train these. Look at these new shoots. They're growing through the canopy of the rose, tall and high. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to train this long cane this way. And what I noticed growing roses for so many years, when I train these canopies now, but not in spring, they're going to produce flowers so much faster. When you train those canes, when you let them go straight, and only in spring you bend them, then they are kind of, they have that process of creating flowers only on the top, set in, and it takes them some time to start developing side shoots. Interesting thing. So from now on, I'm training all the canes which I want to grow parallel in the fall. This way they are overwintering and they get that nice growing of side shoots right away in spring. Meanwhile, this cane, you see this long one? It is not coming from the base of the plant, it is coming from the side. And I will keep it as the main cane, one of the main canes. Sometimes I can have 3 or 4 main canes growing on one base cane, which is fine. And I trained them in the direction I need them to go. The first one, we are going to do this one, this long one. You see how nice and long it is? Now I have to get him out and train him right here. Again, it doesn't have to be very tight and pretty, because in spring I will reorganize it all over again. It just has to be secure against the wind. And I'm tying the new stems to already existing stems, or to the construction, whatever I am close to. Now this one, I probably will train it that way, because this rose has already enough of its stems, and that area here in the middle was kind of bare through the summer, so this stem will go there. And I try not to tie the stem going down. Usually those stems don't want to produce flowers. Anything horizontal or ascending would be great, as horizontal as possible. Hey, close to 70% of people who are watching this YouTube channel are not subscribed. Please hit that subscribe button and let's have some fun in the garden together, right? And that's it. A simple job of tying all the long stems into the direction you want. I know it doesn't look really pretty right now. In a week, all the leaves will realign themselves, so it will look a little bit better. But at this point, it is more important to keep those long stems from swaying in the wind, hitting each other, not deadheading a rose to prepare it for the fall, and not to touch all these semi-long side shoots, because you don't want to encourage your rose to grow. You want your rose to be preparing for the dormant season. So this is it about my generous garden. As the next step for me to touch this rose would be at the end of November. But for now, I will keep an eye on all the long canes and will tie them in as needed. My dear gardeners, if you are into roses as I am, I think you will find this video helpful. 5 mistakes what not to do for your roses before going into winter. And also look at this Katrina rose. It also is exhibiting this very happy octopus behavior. So if you want me to show you how I do Katrina rose, which would be the same way probably as Generous Gardener, a little bit differently, let me know. And I will do a video on it as well. Well, be well, and we will see you in our next video. Happy gardening!